This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, it's going to be very, very explosive. We've got a lot to get into, a whole lot to unpack. I think at this moment in time, WWE is giving us some of the very best wrestling you could ask for. We also have the one reason why this wrestler is going overseas. We have an update on a possible CM Punk return. And WWE Air possibly reached out to AEW to join them. We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to break down Clash at the Castle. And like I said, WWE giving us possibly some of the best stuff on television right now. And I realized something about AEW, and I want to discuss that. And I want to see if maybe I'm a little bit off base, or if Jock is in line with me, or if Doc is in line with me. We're gonna get into all of this, sort through all of the chaos that is the wonderful world of wrestling, and helping me do it all is the one, the only, the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Cuz, honestly, we've been doing this podcast now over 300 episodes. We've talked about a lot of things, the rise and fall of Vince McMahon, WWE, us, I recall hating Raw every week, going, what are we watching? This is cut, copy, and paste. Kenny just saying, I'm throwing my hands up, I can't watch this. I could honestly say this week, starting with Clash at the Castle, which was a botch fest, but I will say this, outside of being somebody that critiques and reviews wrestling, if you just sat back and bottled up these last 7 days with the three companies, even four with TNA, NXT, WWE, AEW, I thought collectively over the last 7 days, I just thought wrestling was, in its truest form, one of the most enjoyable. That's what gets me up out of bed on a Saturday when I should be sleeping to come talk to you about wrestling. I enjoyed it. From the funny-ass debates we've had about Joe Hendry and his video at NXT, to the botch fest and the hilarity that took place at Clash at the Castle, to two megastars meeting face-to-face at AEW, to SmackDown, which was out of this world. If you just take and sit back and not critique it, I thought this week, these last 7 days, were unbelievable. And it just makes me happy to be a wrestling fan, because if this is what it can produce just in a week in June, oh my God, cuz this week was awesome. And I can't wait to review the podcast, talk about all the storylines, how Raw opened. I think this week might be the most difficult show of the week prediction that I've ever thought about. So I can't wait. Man, I thought this week was awesome, just in totality.
Yeah, it was a really great week of wrestling. Like you said, it started with Clash at the Castle on Saturday. It did seem as though the ropes may have been the biggest threat to all of the competitors. The ropes seemed to be an issue throughout just about every match. From the very, very opening one, you had the referee walk over to AJ Styles and basically say, look, here's the issue with the ropes. Be careful. Watch this. And thankfully, it didn't really impact this match too much. It did impact a few of the matches. It did cause for some pretty bad spots where a couple of people could have really have gotten injured. Thankfully, nobody really came out hurt. But let's get into the results. We ended up splitting the point on this one. We basically went step for step together in this one. The big issue where we ended up not getting it correct was the women's tag team match. We'll get into that here in a moment. But Cody Rhodes ends up defeating AJ Styles in an I Quit match to retain the WWE Championship. I kind of had this after watching this match. This is a thought I had. Cody Rhodes, as white meat of a babyface as he is, he's got a little bit of an edgier, darker place. As white meat of a babyface as John Cena was, Cody Rhodes is just as much that. He is the good guy. I want to do it for the kids. I want to praise the kids. But he has no problem taking it to another place. In this match, ends up grabbing the stairs, looks over, I believe he looked over at his mom and like basically asked her if it was okay if he smushed him with the stairs. She said, yeah, and he goes for it. So Cody Rhodes has no problem kind of flipping a switch and giving us that good guy John Cena, but when he has to, he can tap into this darker version. Do you find that him having that bit of a darker, edgier side just kind of adds a little bit more depth to his character? It makes him a little bit more relatable.
Yeah, I think that it's something that you knew. Cody Rhodes can do it all. I think he has all the tools. I thought Mama Rhodes being involved was funny. I didn't think the match lived up to the first one, but I do think that AJ Styles, when you look at it, has the potential to have good matches with a lot of people. It's just for me, I mean, you don't want to see AJ Styles say, I quit. I thought the ending was okay. Yeah, luckily the ropes didn't get too much involved in the match. Look, it could have been more violent even when you looked at that kind of match, but I thought that in regards to doing what it needed to do to open a show, I thought the match was just fine. Cody Rhodes advances, and I just think that AJ Styles, when you have a nice feud, look, it was a good feud, I think, to kick off Cody Rhodes' championship run, and it had a lot of stories, even though it was short-lived, but I do think that the opportunity now, I'm just curious to see what's next for AJ Styles.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's next for AJ Styles, as well as how is this all going to shake out with Cody Rhodes? It does look like he's going to be involved with the Bloodline. Also looks like Randy Orton, Kevin Owens are going to be involved with the Bloodline. So there's going to be a bit to unpack here, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the Bloodline a little bit later on here. Next was the one match that we got wrong. Isla Dawn, Alba Fire. We talked about it. We talked about this being the other possible outcome. There were two outcomes in this. This was the other one. This was the one that we did not go with. They won the WWE Women's Tag Team titles by defeating Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair in a triple threat match. Zoe Starks and Shayna Baszler were also involved. This match was a little bit sloppy. I think you've seen some of the greenness from Jade Cargill. I think at times there were mistakes that were made, and she just wasn't able to kind of overcome them. She wasn't able to kind of move past them. There was a point where the referee was looking right at her, and Shayna Baszler had her set up in getting ready to go into the Karafuda clutch, and Jade Cargill is tapping out, and you weren't supposed to tap there. You weren't supposed to do that. So the referee has to pretend like he doesn't see it. It becomes a bit of a black eye on this match. She also had her botch on the ring ropes. It became a little bit sloppy in this match. I like the fact that Isla Dawn and Alba Fire won these belts. I think you can make an interesting story going forward as long as Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair don't win them back immediately. As long as they don't take them quickly. I thought on Friday Night SmackDown, you've seen Jade Cargill lose her triple threat match for her Money in the Bank spot. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a good call because I think this is where you can start to kind of sprinkle in some of those seeds of doubt and maybe really start to tear at the fabric of that partnership. What did you make of Isla Dawn and Alba Fire winning the women's World Tag Team Champions?
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I don't want to be negative, but clearly they wanted to soften the blow regarding what was going to happen later in the evening, so you get the pop. But I look at it like championships should really reflect who the better tag team is. And even though, look, I get it. I know one of the participants had some family stuff going on, was dealing with some things. Maybe I know Triple H addressed it in the post event scrum, talking about no, that wasn't the reason. But I just don't feel like, yeah, they had success at NXT, but I felt it was too soon on the main roster to give them a title. And I think that's kind of subconsciously to me why I don't take women's tag team championships really all that seriously, because at times it kind of is used as a way to elevate people, where belts are supposed to be the validation of somebody that is the best in their division. And I just don't, I just thought the result was wrong. I thought that, in the end, I thought that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill would look better with the tag team titles. If they split, you have it more meaningful when the eventual loss is to a really solid team up and coming, or you build up Isla Dawn and her partner kind of lose in Scotland, but then they fight back at SummerSlam and get it back in kind of a way where I just felt like the chase in regards to, hey, some disappointment when you face it, then when you win it means more. So it just, to me, felt like a hometown pop, and I don't feel like that tag team is the best in the world right now. So it's just kind of watered down in my opinion, it watered down the women's tag team belts.
I get where you're at. I think maybe hold some of that criticism, some of that critique to see what happens after this. Yep. Because I think they could do some stuff with Isla Dawn and Alba Fire And I think this could lead to the bigger story, which is Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair. Both these ladies have already said that they want to face each other at some point. That could be the match that we get at SummerSlam. So I would say maybe temper it. I get where you're coming from, but maybe temper it just a little bit.
And I will say this: I will say this. I do understand that they have been elevated, and Alba Fire had a nice run in NXT. My mind always goes to what have you done on the main roster. My brain always says the work you do in NXT is just all prep work to get you over. It's just all the. I truly treat it as a developmental where people can go. I don't treat it as a third brand. So to me, the history of Alba Fire, and I know they were champions, and I know they had great feuds, but I look at it like you need to establish yourself in the main roster as well before you become champion. But I know you could say I'm being a hypocrite because I think they should push Braun Breaker to the moon because the man is legit. So I get it, but we'll see. You're absolutely right. I can't wait to see what they do with it. And it was a nice moment. I'm not going to hate on winning a championship in your home country. I can't wait to see what they do with it. I think they have the potential to live up to making the belt even stronger. Hopefully they do get a nice run.
You and I are in lockstep, though. We do both see NXT as the developmental brand. I don't really believe it's a third brand. I think you sometimes get almost like in baseball where you have like a 4A player, a guy who is really, really good in NXT, and you can see them being really, really good on the main roster, but they're still in NXT. And it's one of those things where you still got to make that leap. You got to make that jump. So I think you and I are in lockstep there. And I get where you're, like I said, I get where you're coming from. But we'll see what they do with it. This has potential, and it's going to be up to WWE and up to Triple H to really help fulfill that potential. Our next match was Sami Zayn beating Chad Gable to retain the Intercontinental Championship. Look, I think in this match you got more great storytelling. It really, to me, coming out of this match, it seemed like Gable was poised for something huge. After what we got on Monday, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with Chad Gable. You basically had on Monday night, you had his group basically dissolving in front of him. This added to that. Everybody was waiting for Otis to basically take charge and pop Gable. And again, this added to it. There was a spot where Maxine Dupree ended up taking the brunt of this, where she ends up getting hurt by Chad Gable. Again, really good storytelling here for Sami Zayn and Chad Gable. Sami Zayn obviously comes out the victor. Let's just kind of work a little bit of Monday into this. What do you see happening with Chad Gable now? Because again, I thought he was really poised for something huge. I thought maybe his group dissolving maybe brought in the Creed brothers, and maybe he got a bigger push and he got to go in a different direction. He signed a huge contract with WWE. It's going to be for at least 2 years. I don't really know the financials of it. I just know it's going to be for at least 2 years. After Monday night, I don't know if I felt the same way as I did on Saturday after this pay-per-view. Where are you at with Chad Gable right now?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you felt like he could be pushed to the moon, but now he's going to have to face off against Otis and kind of deal with the fact that he's been a bully. And again, that's the part where you look at a character like Chad Gable is where is his ceiling? What can he do next? Do you see a potential run? That's where a TV title would be great because Chad Gable would be great. It sucks that the United States title is over on SmackDown. So I look at it like he kind of is not Intercontinental worthy, but would be great for like a perfect candidate for a United States championship. I think he's going to be, look, Chad Gable is going to be championship worthy, but right now he's more in character mode as opposed to championship mode, which is I'm the bully, I'm the guy that's supposed to be the leader, get in line. And I just thought it was great because what you did is it helps to reinvigorate Otis and Tozawa and Maxine Dupree. And the way in which now the intrigue has been built is what's going to happen. How does the heel get his comeuppance? And that's going to be Otis whooping his ass. So now I'm just going to shift my attention a little bit to getting excited to see what they do with Otis as well. But for Chad Gable, look, he's a true pro. I think everything that he does is going to be good, but I just don't see top-level stardom for him. But I do see maybe a United States title run, an opportunity with the belt in this contract. No doubt about it. He can do it all. And I just can't wait to see the evolution of his heel situation. And to me, if I was the book, I'd start going, you know what? I would reunite and make AJ Styles' group stronger, and I'd just add Chad Gable. I think that foursome right there would be amazing. You got two strong wrestlers and two beasts as a tag team. I think that'd be great. And, I just think that Chad Gable as a leader of a stable looks weird, but him part of a stable it would be amazing. So I'm curious to see. There's a lot of ebbs and flows of what he can do, but it's right now the bully phase, and now the faces are going to get a chance to take over.
That is interesting. I've not thought of Chad Gable, AJ Styles, Doc Gallows, and Carl Anderson as a group, along with Meechin. I have not thought about that, but
they'd run the ship.
That
right?
could be fantastic. Yeah, right. that could be really interesting. Way to get creative with that booking. I do like that. Next, we got Bayley defeating Piper Niven to remain WWE Women's World Champion, and then we had our main event. And there was a lot of storytelling that was done in this match. Damian Priest retains his World Heavyweight Championship against Drew McIntyre. Unfortunate spot of the match. He goes to do this jump over the ropes, and his foot kind of got caught in them. Look, Drew McIntyre, being the pro that he is, takes advantage of this and works this into the story as referees helping to untangle Damian Priest's foot. Damian Priest, luckily, not seriously hurt. Could have been seriously hurt. In the end, I thought this was fantastic. You end up having McIntyre hit a couple of claymores, lay out Priest in the middle of the ring, pins him. Referee took a bump earlier, so you have a ref slide in, and fantastic camera work. Like it really was great camera work. You have a referee slide in. You don't know who it is. Gives you the 1, 2, and just as the 3's coming down, he holds up his hand. The other camera pans to him, and it's CM Punk, and he ends up flipping off Drew McIntyre. And this leads to Drew McIntyre chasing him into a corner, putting him into a bit of a choke, and CM Punk kicks him in the nuts. And then next thing you know, you got Damian Priest hitting a finishing move and getting the 1, 2, 3 to retain his title. I thought this was done so well. This added, we talked about this last week, and this was one of the endings that we put out there. And this worked out great. I thought the way this was executed was superb. From the camera work to both CM Punk to Drew McIntyre to Damian Priest, everybody played a part and everybody did a fantastic job. What did you think about this main event, and what did you think about CM Punk screwing Drew McIntyre?
I thought it was great. That was the way to go, even though it was something that everybody knew was going to happen. I thought maybe CM Punk made the mistake of taking, I don't know if you saw it, he took a photo with somebody beforehand and somebody posted, oh, we know CM Punk's in Scotland. So it makes it so that you know what's going to happen. But in the end, I think sometimes what's special is if you know something's coming and then you see it and you still deliver, that maybe even gets you more bonus points. And I think that's where some of the leaks can be positive, where you build the anticipation of, okay, how is CM Punk going to do this? And I thought it had maximum impact. And Drew also gets credit for selling the devastating impact. I thought for a minute that maybe Drew deserved to win it, and maybe that the universe conspired that, you know what, Damian Priest's legs all fucked up and they just go, fuck it, let's just put it on him and see what happens. We'll figure it out later. But I thought the spot was crazy because it forced Drew to break kayfabe to try to get him out of the ropes. It was scary. And many people just thought, oh my gosh, Damian Priest wrecked every tendon in his ankle. And it was masterful selling. I think the way in which Damian continued that match, given the fact that a big mistake was made. And look, it's professional wrestling, and a Clash at the Castle overseas, you can kind of have a lot of these mistakes. It's a show where it's predictable and and so it's more, really to me, it's weird. It's kind of like those Saudi shows and overseas shows, kind of, it's just more about fan involvement, more about, hey, how do we further our stories and embed our thoughts about what's going to happen next? And the wrestling is typically solid, but sometimes it takes a backseat to, hey, here's the story, here's the purpose of these matches. And I thought, I would have liked a little bit more of a classic match between Drew and Damian, and maybe we'll get that opportunity. But for what they needed to tell, I thought it was great. And it kind of shows that, hey, Damian's resilient, but at the same token, when you hear Triple H say and Damian flex, oh, you guys all thought I would lose. I just thought, well, Damian, you're not having the best. You're not Seth Rollins. You're kind of there because you have that unique look and the booker likes you, but you're not living up to, from the time that he wrestled Bad Bunny, it kind of hasn't seemed like he's been consistently having banger after banger of a matches. And that's what he's got to do is now you got the belt. It's a different level. Like you're now graded as the guy. You don't get to have botch after botch and not great, like so-so match, so-so promo. You got to basically, when you get the belt, you got to take your game to the next level. And I think right now, Damian Priest is still at the level of, hey, I'm the guy that Edge tabbed as a guy to put in a group, but he hasn't taken that next jump up to crisp promos, believability, banger matches, believability that, hey, I'm the world champion. And look, you could even see it. When Seth Rollins comes out, everything was smooth, crisp, pro. You know that you can almost envision that he's going to have a great match with nearly anybody. So I just hope Damian gets to that level, but he's not there now. And it's just disappointing because it's the main event. It's the show. You can't fly. I mean, Damian Priest, I would just say, when that spot comes up, I would say, Damian, you don't need to go do that. Go through the ropes. You don't need to go over the ropes, or you don't need to be doing all that. You're a big monster. Physicality can be displayed in a lot of different ways. You don't got to be doing rope shit when you're the world champion. Just go beat the F out of Damian Priest and establish your dominance. So it didn't live up to the expectation, but the finish was great, and it definitely furthers the the Drew McIntyre CM Punk feud is now at the ether level where we all want to see the match, and they've done a great job. They've told the story. Everybody in the world will stop what they're doing to watch that match.
Yeah, and so this leads us to basically two stories. And real quick, on Damian Priest, I think what you're saying is Damian Priest, fantastic wrestler, but not really a draw right now. He's not the guy that you're paying to go see defend that championship.
Yes, facts.
And I think he has the ability to possibly grow into that. But right now, he's not that guy. And I would agree with you 100%. But this main event then leads to two different storylines. I think one is inherently more interesting than the other. And I think the work that WWE has done with the one has been absolutely fantastic. But it led to Seth Rollins coming back on Monday night, and he cuts a promo, immediately gets interrupted by Damian Priest, who offers him a WWE Championship match. So Seth Rollins comes back after a small hiatus where he had a really bad knee injury at WrestleMania. It's been about 8 weeks or so. Looks like he's all healed up. Should be good to go by Money in the Bank, which is in a couple of weeks. Does he deserve to cut the line and get an immediate shot at the WWE Championship? As Damian Priest said, it was because he wanted to beat Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. He wanted to cash in on Seth Rollins and basically uncrown him and take that championship off of him. Basically saying, I want to test myself against the best. I think we all agree Seth Rollins is probably the best wrestler on Monday Night Raw right now. So does Rollins, fresh off injury, fresh off a bit of a hiatus, fresh off the beach vacationing with Becky Lynch, does he deserve to get this shot immediately?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Seth Rollins, what are you going to put him in, really? He's a guy that I think the perfect time off after WrestleMania, heal up, rest up, take your time. And I think that's just really special, too. And I think if WWE ever did a calendar, maybe it's not around the holidays because people are off and you can get shows. I think the time where wrestlers should take time off is right after WrestleMania, going into Backlash and Clash at the Castle. I think a lot of wrestlers that get post 35 should just do that. They should say, look, I want to work July to December, July to April, and then I want May and June off. Like, I want that shit off. I want a little mini summer break, character refresh, figure it out, and that's a perfect schedule where you work like 45 weeks a year, you get a couple months off, or a lot of lower schedule, and then you come right back in right before Money in the Bank. I think it's a perfect lull where others can, lower card talent can elevate themselves. But Seth Rollins is the man. His promo was solid. He looked the part. I thought it was one of his best looks. The white look for him is good. You know, I think the flamingo pinks and the funky shoes, maybe not the best, because it makes him, just not his best look. I thought that look, the more suave, going out to the club, date guy kind of thing is a perfect look for him. I thought he was great. The crowd loved him. I thought he was ready to just embrace everything. You can see his love for the business, and he's missed. And I think that maybe is perfect too, because I think that if they have, I'm not hearing because I don't check house show results, but if they can have a series of matches beforehand, that can only elevate Damian Priest, because Seth Rollins is the HBK, the Bret Hart of the company. I think he can have great matches with everybody. That should elevate Damian Priest when he beats him. But it sucks because he's going to lose. But I'm curious to see it. I'm intrigued by it. I just, it gives you enough time away where you're like, okay, I want to see a Seth Rollins match, and it's perfect timing.
I think the good thing coming out of this, I don't necessarily believe he should cut the line. But I think the one good thing out of this is we just talked about Damian Priest not necessarily being the draw. I think working with a guy like Seth Rollins, he can help teach you subtle things. He can help teach you different things, different ways to present yourself. He can help mold you into that draw that we don't feel Damian Priest is right now at this time. So I think if anything, it's a great learning experience for Damian Priest, and it's a great way to help him kind of mature in this role, while you don't have to take the belt off him. A lot of guys end up learning a lot once that belt comes off of them. They kind of are a little bit reflective as to what worked, what didn't work, and they can kind of fix it and piece it together for their next title run. I think working with a guy like Seth Rollins, we know he's a pro's pro. We know he is the face of WWE. He wears that on his shoulder. This guy, like you said, comes back, everything's fluid. From the promo, from the way he walks to the ring, to the way he basically gets himself into a match that I don't necessarily feel he rightly deserves. Everything is fluid. Everything is flawless, and he does a fantastic job with it. Some of that can rub off on Damian Priest. So it'll be interesting to see what Priest can take from Rollins in this build, and if he can kind of add some of these tools to his repertoire. Now, the other story coming out of this main event was Drew McIntyre. Monday night rolls around. Drew is pissed. On Monday Night Raw, Drew quits WWE. I say quit in finger quotes. Quits WWE, scrubbed his social media, basically goes dark, only to come back on Friday night. And you hear this they're in Chicago. CM Punk comes down to the ring to open. Later on in the broadcast, there's this thudding against this gigantic metal door. They raise up the door. And this is the thing that I was so impressed with. This is why I say WWE under Triple H is giving us some of the best stuff right now. The realism with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk in this spot was absolutely fantastic. If you go back and you watch, it's very subtle little things. If you've ever been in a fight, you've ever been in a street fight, you've ever been in a fight at all, the blood on the knuckles was telling. This is something that under Vince McMahon, this would be skipped over. This would just be glossed over, wouldn't be a thing. Drew McIntyre had blood all over his hands. He had some blood splatter on his shoulder. There was blood on the cement under where CM Punk laid. All looked very, very real. It looked as though CM Punk legitimately got his ass beat by Drew McIntyre. As Drew carried CM Punk on his shoulders to the top of the entrance ramp, there was blood dripping down Drew McIntyre's back that was coming off of CM Punk's head. CM Punk legitimately, his lip being busted open, it looked very, very real. The realism of this segment put this over the top for me. I thought this was so well done. I thought this was so fantastic. I fell in love with this segment. I loved every minute of it, and I love what they're giving to us with this, because these are, again, it's just subtle little things that normally were overlooked, or just the attention to detail wasn't put in. There was so much attention to detail put in this spot. Just go back and watch it frame by frame, and your mind will be blown. Just look at Drew McIntyre. Again, look at the knuckles. Look at where the blood is on Drew McIntyre. Look at CM Punk's face. Look at where the blood is on CM Punk's face. Look at the blood that is on the cement and how it pooled and how it laid. These are little things. These are almost cinematography at its finest. The realism with this entire setup was out of this world and made this for me. And I think right now, Drew McIntyre turning around and then shoving Nick Aldis and saying what he said to Nick Aldis. If you've ever seen a guy so worked up and so on edge and ready to just destroy everybody in front of him, the way he shoved Nick Aldis was spot on. The body language was spot on. Nick Aldis getting in his face, spot on. All of this, you hit every single mark. And again, it's just little subtle things. Nothing was out of place. Everything was done to perfection and done to a perfect T. I loved what they're doing with Drew McIntyre and what they're doing with CM Punk. I think this is absolutely fantastic. This new version of Drew McIntyre, this was a guy who might have been about a year ago, was on the verge of quitting WWE and going to look for something new because they wanted to change his character. And he was like, I'm not just going to change my character to change my character. I need a reason why. They gave him a reason why. He has leaned into it so well. And this version of Drew McIntyre might be one of my favorite versions of Drew McIntyre. I think this has been absolutely fantastically done. What did you think about Drew McIntyre coming back and just annihilating CM Punk on Friday night after quitting on Monday?
Yeah, and it's good too because it establishes that, hey, Chicago visits are not just a coronation for CM Punk. It's an opportunity to say, hey, there's revenge. There's a back and forth. We want to build a story. And Drew McIntyre is legitimately pissed. I thought the angle too, the way in which it was set up with, the backstage was perfect. And it just built to the crescendo of what the hell's behind the door? What's that banging? And then it opens up and CM Punk is destroyed. And it's a lot of attention. And it's true that you don't have to be in the world title conversation to be fulfilled as a creative talent. When you get to see what you're doing, when you have the story of, hey, this has been a long-term story since the Royal Rumble, where they took a story and said, okay, CM Punk got hurt, Drew McIntyre laughs. This has been since January. Long-term story to build a feud. We haven't had the match yet. So this is where, if you're Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, where afterwards in Scotland, CM Punk said, and he was praising the company, he said, this is the WWE I envisioned when I started to complain. And Triple H said it too in a nice way. He said, look, I was trying to get the best out of CM Punk, but the way in which I did it probably caused friction. But now they're working together, and you could almost see the product of CM Punk sitting with Paul going, okay, here's what we do. And Paul going, yeah, let's go do it. And you get Drew in the mix, and you get creative minds. And I think that when you have a talent like CM Punk, who's probably even more valuable as a storyteller than he's going to be as a wrestler, where he's got the creative mind to throw in ideas. And then you sprinkle in, I could picture a meeting and then Paul Heyman walks in with a corned beef sandwich and being like, well, why don't you do this too? And they're like, oh yeah. And he walks out and laughs, and then they just use it. So this is the beauty of wrestling, is that the ideas are flowing and the creativeness is making it so that we're intrigued by what we're seeing. And it's beautiful to see. And like I said, all you can do is build a match. And it's really, I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, this is UFC style. Like, okay, I want to whip your ass. I'm going to beat your ass. I'm revengeful. There's only a handful of reasons you can give to fight. But when you can build a story as to, hey, I'm going to make fun of you when you're hurt. I'm going to take away your chance to win a title in your home country. I mean, now you have ether, like I said, and everybody wants to see it. When that and you know what sucks is this is probably the feud, and I'll look back on some of them where both people equally need to win it, and it sucks because
I agree with you.
Both equally need you need CM Punk to win to be a world title contender. You need Drew to win because of the fact that he's a monster and he's somebody that is higher on the card than CM Punk is, but CM Punk is more of a historical star. I think, we'll have that debate, but going into it, I think the early debate would be Drew going over, but you have a hellacious match. CM Punk has to establish himself as a wrestler, but I think he needs to take the L. That's my early thought, but I can't wait to see it, and that's all you can do. I can't wait to see it. Not like I want to see it, okay. I'm like, when is it happening? It's going to be probably SummerSlam, and I can't wait to see the reaction in a Mideast town for CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. It has a chance to be special.
It absolutely does. And look, I think everything you said, absolutely spot on. This should be one of the best storylines that we get from WWE this year. This should be right up there and held in the highest regard, similar to where the Bloodline storyline was last year. It'll be interesting to see where we end up going from here, but I'm all aboard. I'm all in. I'm loving every moment of this. Now, on Monday Night Raw and on SmackDown, we got two brand new debuts. I want to get your impression of what we got at the very end of Monday Night Raw with the Wyatt Six. And six is spelled SICKS. So six. I thought the presentation of Uncle Howdy and basically the myriad of characters from Bray Wyatt's mind was so well done. It looked like something out of a gruesome Rob Zombie horror show. I thought it was so well presented, and I thought the way that they carried themselves and the way that they looked was unreal. And it was spooky, man. It was one of those things where if you were a kid and you watched that, it might have gave you nightmares that night. And it was so well done. And I'm curious to see where these guys go next. Again, Chad Gable got destroyed in the presentation of the Wyatt Six, along with a bunch of other wrestlers. That's why I'm not sure where we're going with Chad Gable right now. I'm not sure if he's going to get sucked into this or if we're going someplace else with him. But he got destroyed by Uncle Howdy and the crew. What was your impression of the debut of the Wyatt Six? Something that's been kind of plotted and planned, and we knew it was coming. I think this was one of those things where they could have really have missed, but they delivered so well. This is one of those things where everybody was eager to see this. Everybody was waiting. Everybody knew this was coming. And then I thought this was one of those things where you can promise. You can overpromise and underdeliver. In this case, I felt like this was overpromised and they overdelivered, which is really, really tough to do.
Yeah, it's been a build. It's something that inherently has a great chance to work because everybody loves Bray Wyatt. It's the next version. But to me, it's just a personal preference. This kind of angle now, it's been going on for so long. And it's unfortunate that, Bray Wyatt passing kind of put a big halt in it. But we've been doing Uncle Howdy since 2022, man. It's been a long time. And it kind of has, we have to treat it as new. This is something brand new. But all the characters have kind of been, maybe this will be the thing that gets them over. A lot of the other characters are it is a bunch of individuals that are very creative and good wrestlers. But now they have this new thing. And it's going to be great to see with Joe Gacy and, everybody else involved in the story. But to me, it's just not my cup of tea. It's just a little bit too far out there, sci-fi, So I wasn't, I know everybody loved it. I loved the presentation of Bray Wyatt, and we loved the spookiness of it. But that character is just a little bit too much tapping into stuff that's just, for me, not my cup of tea. I'm not a sci-fi guy. I'm not a, zombie apocalypse kind of person. Never watched any of those shows. Never watched The Walking Dead. Never watched anything on HBO involved in that kind of stuff. So now you bring it onto the screen. Yeah, it was cool. It's different. And I watched it again, and I said, okay, it did, it dragged on a little bit in terms of getting everybody involved, but I thought that it was perfect in that he only said a couple words. We are here, and you ended the show. So I thought that was perfect to build intrigue, and then Paul Heyman references it on SmackDown. So yeah, it'll be a curiosity, but it's not going to be the thing that I'm more into. Okay, Drew and CM Punk, the evolution now of what happened on SmackDown is going to draw my attention. So now the next step is, what the hell are these people going to do? What's their thesis? What are they going to try and do out there? Who are they going to attack? What do they want to try and do? Take over? Inherently, it would kind of be funny to have a feud with the Judgment Day. But to me, it's just not my preference in terms of, this is not what I'm most interested in professional wrestling. The masks and the zombies and the extra kind of stuff. It's not like the thing that just excites me the most.
Sad. I thought for sure you would be all on board. Like I said, I was completely blown away by this. And you're right. This has been ongoing forever. And again, it's one of those things where I really feel like WWE needs to be congratulated for not botching this. This is something that, like you said, you had stuff going on with Bray Wyatt for years, and it was very stop-start. Bray gets released, Bray gets brought back, and they were working on building this, and then he passes away. And this really feels like it is a true homage to the creative mind of Bray Wyatt, and it really feels like they done him right, which, again, old WWE would have screwed this shit up. So, look, I'm impressed. I don't know where they go, though. Like you said, this is something weird. This is something different. And I don't feel like a lot of the stuff that Bray Wyatt was involved with, I felt like it was really, really good until it wasn't. And it usually ended at some match, somewhere else. The realistic part, right? The sci-fi spooky stuff was always really, really good. The realistic stuff, the wrestling and getting in the ring and telling the story in the ring always seemed to kind of fall flat with Bray Wyatt. And I think that might be where you're coming from with this. It just, how do you make those two worlds connect, right? How do you make that storytelling weird world and everything that's involved with it connect in the ring and tell that story there? Because that is what this business is. It is a wrestling business. You have to wrestle in the ring. You've got to be able to tell that story. So how do you get it from over here in sci-fi spooky land to the wrestling ring where it's more real, where it's a little bit more palpable?
Yeah, and you got
that's going to be, I think, the big challenge for WWE and Triple H.
Yeah, and Uncle Howdy doesn't look like an individual that can wrestle. You know what I mean? In terms of the mask and the logistics of it. So you maybe just need like a Andrew Lloyd Webber kind of mask where it just kind of covers the face, but it can't be all that plastic, all that kind of big mask kind of thing. You just got to cover the eyes. And we all know now it's Bray Wyatt, or we all know it's Bo Dallas, and who's only 32, 33. He has the feeling he's 45 years old, but he came on young and emerged at NXT. And even with all the years off, he's still very young, can still have 10 years of creativity to honor his brother. So you're absolutely right. Exactly, because it's like, okay, now we're at the beginning. I'm curious to see, but probably early on, you would say that they got to tap into people's fears of the unknown, of the supernatural, and of violence. So I can't wait to see it. And also, too, I think, too, in that we've seen a character that we all like go down that road, and I didn't like it. The Alexa Bliss angle with all of this, it sucked. It just kind of like she was there, and it never did anything. It never delivered. It was like, okay, we just needed that final payoff where she did something bold and get somewhere. And I just think that I just hope it doesn't fall that way for anybody else in that crew. So it'll be interesting to see, but it has to deliver in the ring as well. They have to wrestle at some point and tell some stories. So I'm curious to see, because we've seen a lot of these backstage vignettes. We've seen a lot of Firefly fun houses. We've seen a lot of things, but now we got to pay it off into what's the story, what's the more, what's the purpose, and I think they'll have a good chance to deliver. But what a debut! They put a lot into it for sure. You can tell.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too. Like you said, are they going to wrestle with these masks on, or are they going to take the masks off? They're going to have to figure out quite a few things still. The evolution of this will be interesting to watch. Now, we did get another debut on SmackDown. We finally got to see Jacob Fatu. He debuted as part of the Bloodlines. He looks like he is a savage Samoan, completely deranged. I thought the way he was presented worked out fantastic. You've already seen Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, and they are savage. Jacob Fatu comes in, and he seems like he is deranged, like he is a madman. To me, this version of the Bloodline, I've said it numerous times, it seems more violent, seems more chaotic, seems more disruptive. And now you add Jacob Fatu into this mix, and it just takes it over the top. You even had Tama Tonga and Tongaloa looking uncomfortable with Jacob Fatu in the mix, because he seems to be the wild card. He seems to be the one who's just a little bit unstable. If you've got a group of friends, you always have that one guy who's always willing to run headfirst into a gunfight, and he's got a knife. That's Jacob Fatu in this case. He is willing to put his head down and just bulldoze people and just wreck shop. I thought his debut, beating up Randy Orton, beating up Kevin Owens, beating up Cody Rhodes. If you want to talk about putting a guy on the map and starting to build him as a huge star, you just took out three of the biggest dudes on SmackDown. I thought this was a fantastic debut. What did you make of Jacob Fatu being introduced to the Bloodline and being introduced to the WWE world?
No doubt about it. Him and Solo are early 30s. Bro, they're going to run the WWE and SmackDown for the next 5 years. I think it's great. I loved it. I thought SmackDown, the storytelling with CM Punk and Paul Heyman, with Paul Heyman kind of saying, hey, take me with you a little bit, I thought was great. And then you have Solo kind of, you also have now, and that's what's great about Paul Heyman, you have him kind of not really wanting to run with Solo, and Solo saying, look, man, you're just going to have to fall in line. This is how it is. I run this. And I like the slow I love the way they're evolving Solo now, which is, hey, this is my show now, and you can like it or you can not like it, but this is what it's going to be. I thought it was great when the three big stars, the three faces, had Solo pinned to the corner, and he looks devastatingly scared, and then he smiles, and then there's Jacob Fatu, who's crazy. And I thought, credit to Corey Graves, who also enhanced the debut of a wrestler by saying, oh boy, we are in trouble because there's a werewolf on the loose. And he did a great job to enhance it. It timed out perfectly. I thought Fatu destroying Cody Rhodes, his jump off the rope was great. And I just thought, here we go. This is great. And it again, when you have a story that you can tell, and now you have a new version of the Bloodline, and it's full of Samoans, and I loved where just before Solo comes out, he tells Paul Heyman, look, man, you can think everything you want, but Roman's not coming back, so fall in line. So it'll be fun to see how this evolves, and eventually Roman's going to come back and have to kind of battle the crazy new leader who's been taught. So this is going to be great. This is a planted story that is years in the making, and now we're at the beginning of a new phase. Everybody was excited. That's a mark in wrestling to see Jacob Fatu, and it's great, man. This is going to be special.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. And like I said, I thought this was a fantastic way to introduce a new Bloodline member and really shoot him to the moon. Now, you, sir, made a comment to me earlier in the week. You're not a believer. You watched NXT and you do not believe in Joe Hendry, and say his name and he shall appear. And he appeared on NXT. He took part in the 25-man battle royal. He lost pretty quickly. And he had a bit of a vignette that has gone absolutely viral. He had this with Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels believes, but yet you don't believe. Why don't you believe in Joe Hendry?
It's very funny. Look, I like it. The song is in my head. It's crazy that this is an individual that now is on everybody's radar. Over 16 million views, the biggest social media post since WrestleMania, among the biggest of the year for WWE. But I look at it and I say, okay, well, why'd they have him come in and then all of a sudden get blown out? I get it. You want to advance the feud that he had on TNA with, and the joke was, it's kind of funny, you guys took it literally. I meant to say, hey, this guy came in with a song, a produced song. Well, first of all, I never heard of the man. So I'm on social media. I mean,
he's a musician. I believe I believe he wrote his own song.
Yeah, he's a musician. Now I've heard of him. Now I've seen his work. But we're not tapped into TNA as much. We were fans of Scott D'Amore. And
it's hard to watch it. If we could get it on TV, we would watch it. I loved TNA back in the day. I can't find it on any network. It sucks.
Exactly. And we're not going to be out there searching for stuff. We just want to find it. So we'll pay more attention. But he gets in, has a great debut, everyone's singing, and they let him fly out of the ring in like 5 seconds, which was funny. So I'm like, what am I supposed to believe in? It was a gimmick. It was funny. But no, all in all, I think they got to take advantage. They have something. They got to steal Joe Hendry. They got to steal Jordan Grace. And this is a great partnership. Outside of the jokes and the hilarity, Joe Hendry is something that I think NXT, I mean, there are some people that you just know are perfect for NXT. Ethan Page, Joe Hendry, these are great. Brian Pillman. This is kind of what NXT is. I don't see, could you see him in Kentucky and that song comes on and people say, I don't know if it has worldwide appeal, but maybe 17 million people like it. So I don't know how, I always look at it like main roster type stuff, but Joe Hendry made NXT fun and made it special. Like I said, I've replayed it 100 times myself because it's funny, the intro and his speech and everything, and it's been fun to learn about it. But I mean, the first message I sent after that was, who the hell is Joe Hendry? I don't know who this guy is. And now after watching him, he can do some things, but he's in his late 30s, so he's kind of got the culmination. And this is one of those things where this was a guy that was upper mid-card in TNA. Now you get some NXT WWE love, and now he's on the map. He's got something, and it's up to him now to capitalize on it. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the gimmick, and the song is very catchy. Say his name, and he appears. It's Joe Hendry, baby, and I think that he's one of the people that you love, where a company that you get into shines the light on you, and you become a star. And he kept playing with it. He's like, how big is this post? Oh, let's get more. What's the next biggest thing? And as it grew in like 3 days from like 6 million to 17 because everyone just loves the gimmick. Everyone loves the guy, and I think you got to take advantage of it. And good for Joe Hendry. Now you got to end up getting in a feud and start getting some wrestling matches in the NXT product and having some fun moments, man. That was funny as hell.
Yeah, it was a good time. Let's transition over to AEW. So, look, I thought AEW this week was fantastic. I thought we had some really fantastic matches.
Yep.
I thought overall it was a very good show. But I had this realization as I put this rundown together, and as I kind of took my notes on AEW, I was like, we didn't really advance any storylines. And then I kind of thought back, and I went and I kind of rewatched some stuff from AEW, and I was like, Nope, we did advance storylines. We did. I was like, the problem is I'm just not interested in any of these storylines.
Right.
I realized watching AEW, I was not interested in really anything that was on television. I thought they were all good matches. And I'll watch a good wrestling match. I've got no problem watching a fantastic wrestling match. And usually it helps get me into the storyline. I thought we had A+ as far as matches go. I thought it was C- as far as storylines go and storytelling goes. And I think that's the big difference that you're seeing now with WWE and AEW. They're really separating themselves right now, where WWE has always been, and I believe always will be, very storyline driven. I think AEW wants to plant its flag in, we're going to give you really good matches. And if you like to watch matches, come here. If you care about storylines, you're probably going to want to go to the other place. I don't really feel like any of the storylines that were told to me were incredibly captivating. I think the one that really grabbed me, and the one that I really had to make a note about, was Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. And that was because I kind of feel like we've had a bit of a flip here, and I feel like Swerve being a very much a face at this moment in time. He came into being the champion as a heel, wins the championship, becomes a face. I feel like he's gone heel and I throw a question mark at the end of it. I feel like he's gone heel in this feud with Will Ospreay, and I feel like Will Ospreay, who came in as a bit of a heel, is now a bit of a face. So I feel like we've had a bit of a double switch, and it's been one of those things where it's been slowly progressing. But that was the only storyline I was really into. I thought the Claudio and Pac match was absolutely awesome. I thought it was fantastic. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't give a shit about the Owen Hart tournament. The Owen Hart tournament doesn't give you anything. You get a weird pink belt, and you get to go hang out with Owen Hart's wife. I don't give a shit about any of that. I don't care about that tournament. I've thought that tournament was stupid. I thought that was a bit of a money play on Owen Hart's name since the day it was started. I think it's dumb, and I kind of think it's tasteless. I thought the match from Claudio and Pac, though, was fantastic. Other than Swerve and Will, I didn't really care about too much of what went on with AEW. Yeah, we got MJF and we got Roosh. I didn't give a shit about that match. I thought, honestly, this is how confused I was. I was like, why are they fighting now? This is what I said out loud. I was like, why are they fighting now? Aren't they supposed to fight at Forbidden Door? It turns out that MJF's going to fight some other guy from CMLL at Forbidden Door. And like, that was done kind of poorly to kind of build that match. I didn't really get where the hell that came from because there was no storyline there. They just were like, hey, he's going to challenge him. And I was like, okay, well, that's weird. So here we are. Am I out of touch? Am I out of base? Is AEW at this moment in time just matches? And yeah, some of them are going to be fantastic. Some of them might be shit. The storylines are going to definitely be the back burner. And most of the storylines you probably aren't going to be interested in. They're just going to be things that they're going to be plot devices that help move along while we're fighting, not really explaining what the fight's about.
You're absolutely spot on. And I think what you're saying is, okay, they have the performers, they have a platform, they have talent. Now the next step is the other part where they're lacking in character development. Remember, NXT, they show you everything. They don't just have wrestling matches. They have, hey, teach you how to deliver a promo, teach you to establish a character, teach you to watch other characters and mix it into you. And what AEW kind of has failed to do is, what they've done is, it's crazy in that if you watch a promo, it has the feel of the 1980s where superstars, where they just would have the characters just talk. But they didn't say anything that was cool. They didn't say much that left you going, oh, I want to remember that. It was kind of like, just let me just talk to say something to get something done and move on. It wasn't lasting. It wasn't impactful. It wasn't intriguing. So that's where they needed like a Dusty Rhodes to kind of say, hey, here's how you can say this way so that the crowd hates you. So a couple people are doing it. Will Ospreay, smooth tactician, can deliver a message and say, hey, don't make it personal. I thought that was perfect because in the end, this is where my expertise is psychology, is the how to elicit human emotion. And clearly WWE did it with Daniel Bryan in the biggest way, which was having him lose in 20 seconds, and then it developed the yes movement. That was calculated. And they've tried it 100 other times where somebody gets screwed, like Cody Rhodes. Over a year, they paid it off. He got screwed at WrestleMania. And now everybody loves them. This is how you develop characters. This is how you develop an emotional investment. And so here's the thing. Here's the best way to put it. Eventually, you got to pay it off with some movement in these characters. Like, for example, Dustin Rhodes had a beautiful, you could argue, top 3 match in company history with his brother. What did they do after that? Did he hold the title? Did he do anything? Did he have another moment? I think that they encapsulated that and said, that's your AEW run. And then you're just the guy again. And you just show up in a main event every so often. And here's Dustin Rhodes. And he wins a match. Here's Dustin Rhodes. He loses a match. Here is like, you need to evolve a character to a crescendo. Some success, some failure, some titles. You need to evolve. Look, Sammy Guevara hurt. Like I said, if you watch that 6-episode series, I've said it multiple times. He said it like, "Hey, we're not building. It's just kind of like stop and start. It's not sustainable across a company." Whereas WWE, there's 15 guys you care about, and there's guys in the mid card you care about what they're doing. Look, you got Sami Zayn, you got AJ Styles, you got now Chad Gable, intrigue, Drew McIntyre. Now on SmackDown, you got Logan Paul, LA Knight is somebody that's a megastar and now kind of working his way down the card, but he's still a guy that everybody cares about. They don't basically what you're saying, and it's one word, and it's hard to do. And I think that's the area they got to spend the next 2 years in if they get a TV deal. AEW doesn't have over superstars. They have stars in companies that are niche, but basically it's really MJF and Will Ospreay are over. Now Okada is getting over with the saying bitch. That's getting over. So you have only a handful. But if you can only count on one hand people in your company that are over, that's a problem. And the reason why, and you've established it, the character development has been lackluster and subpar to the point that you say, I don't care about these people. And that's not good enough. And so what they need is character development. They need hardcore characters to come in there and teach these guys, hey, here's how you get people to care about you. Drama, intrigue. They want to follow your story. David versus Goliath. Feeling like they're doing it now with the Young Bucks. But again, it's a situation in which you're coming at it from a point where you can't pay it off because CM Punk's not in the company. So you have now the establishment. When WWE did it, it was Vince McMahon and Steve Austin, with Steve Austin in the company. So Young Bucks are doing it with CM Punk not in the company. And I remember somebody saying, hey, you need CM Punk to make the money to draw this out, to make all the shit that you're doing worthwhile. And that's where the problem is that they got it. They had the money story that could get people to care about CM Punk, and they fucked it up. So they got work to do. I hope they recognize it. I think people are saying it now. Everyone's saying it. Look, you got to have investments. You got to have people that, people care about. But AEW's got work to do. But I could see some investment made in that department because I think people are aware of it. People are seeing, okay, AEW's there, but they're not as highly touted anymore in terms of popular opinion as they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, look, I think you are spot on. It's a ton of talent.
But it's over.
When you were going through talking and before you said his name, I was like, Dusty Rhodes could really shape and mold that roster and really make it so much more impactful and really help give you more. Instead, it really does feel like and this is going to be rough to say, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it is the connotation I get from AEW. It is the indies on steroids.
Yeah.
It is a lot of guys who are incredibly talented, but you don't have that hand to really refine and fine tooth what these guys can and should be doing. And the guys who have come over from WWE, a lot of them, a guy like a John Moxley, a Claudio, Pac, who was in the system at WWE. Swerve is another guy who took advantage of NXT and got a lot out of it. These guys are really good. They do a great job with a lot of what they've got going on. It's some of the other talent that doesn't necessarily push in that same direction. And again, you need both parties to cooperate. You can't just have one guy doing it. You know what I'm saying? You need everybody kind of pulling in that same direction. And to me, AEW just seems a little bit unrefined. And I think that's probably my biggest problem with it.
And as you were talking, here's the thing. I'm surprised because they have one of the biggest legends in character development in history in Chris Jericho. But as you were talking, it kind of has the feel like they need an infusion of a Ric Flair, of a Chris Jericho telling these people how to develop characters. But it has the feel that maybe Bryan Danielson and Arn Anderson and Dean Malenko's of the world are the ones that are the loudest voices, and it seems like they're too serious. Like, Chris Benoit, you can have one of them, but you can't have a roster full of Chris Benoits. You can't have cripplers all over the place. You need to have Seth Rollins. You need to have, and that's where WWE is. They have the right blend. Right blend of mid-card, right blend of high-end talent, right blend. It's the right mix, and it's just right. It's just the right soup tasting, just the right amount of salt, just the right amount of pepper. Whereas AEW, you need to add some more flavors. The base is there. You got the taste of the soup that you know is there, but it needs a lot more salt, pepper, needs some celery, needs a little bit of cumin, needs a little bit of that basil. It needs the mix and stirred right. And I just think the entertainers need to get in there and be like, hey, let's start entertaining and start being some fun people and get people over. And look, for example, the Acclaimed. I mean, they were over, and they've just fallen off to the point now they don't even let the guy rap. They just turn off his mic. So come on, dude. You should do that at least twice a month, consistently on television, on Wednesday, on your biggest show. But that's how it is that it's not good enough. They're not over enough, and they need to do that. Or otherwise, like you said, it'll just be viewed as an indie company. But in the end, cuz I think that's the part is there is an aspect of maybe they don't want to do that. The company is going along. They're signing big stars. They're paying them a lot of money. And they're like, hey, we got 700,000 fans. We'll take those 700,000 fans and we'll go with it. And it's crazy because you would like to think someone say, hey, you could get 4 million fans if you were over. You could have $1 billion company if you had a little bit more entertainment. You ran it. Last year, I think the most entertaining thing was MJF and Adam Cole. So they just need to expand their mind and be willing to dip their toes back into some sports entertainment. It's not a bad thing. It's not your company brand logo. It's all elite wrestling. But at the same time, you need some things to draw the average viewer to keep them there, because you can't. The average wrestling fan is not watching 2 hours of banger after banger after banger after banger after banger. They do need a little bit of a respite with some entertainment, and let's see if they do it.
I agree with you 100%. What was your show of the week?
All right, it's tough, man. You open Raw with SmackDown. You open Raw with Seth Rollins. SmackDown was awesome. NXT has been great, but the show of the week, top to bottom, 2 hours of just nonstop, was SmackDown. You debuted Jacob Fatu. Chicago popped. You get a great story with Drew McIntyre. You had the Money in the Bank qualifying. You had everything that went down. It was perfect. The pop for Randy Orton was great. You get to see Randy Orton in the ring. You get to see Solo really start to emerge as the leader. I sent you something on Twitter just now that we'll talk about in the coming weeks. Bro, it's juicy. I want it. I need it. I'm fixated. It's a tease. We'll share what I sent in the coming weeks. But bro, it's great. Mm-hmm. SmackDown is going to be the show of the week. It was tough, super tough, but it was the best show this week.
See, I thought without Monday Night Raw, SmackDown's not as impactful. I'm going to give it to Raw.
No doubt.
Look, I thought you have Drew McIntyre establishing his story by quitting to only come back in surprise and take out CM Punk. I think you had the debut of the Wyatt Six, which was fantastic. You got Seth Rollins coming back, which helps move that Damian Priest storyline along. I thought both were equally great. I just kind of feel like they each deserve a bit of a point this week. So you go SmackDown, I'll go Raw.
All right, that's absolutely a great week. Again, I'm going to bottle up this episode and replay it down the road because it was a special week.
All right, you ready for some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
Honestly, you realize how long this episode has been. We're just now getting into news and notes. It's crazy. We've had so much to talk about. But news and notes, let's jump into it. The reason why this wrestler is going overseas, WWE and Pro Wrestling Noah have cemented their relationship, and this big WWE star is headed to Japan. Pro Wrestling Noah announced that AJ Styles will face Namchi Marufuji on Saturday, July 13th at Noah's Destination event. Cyberfights director Ario Takadia explained why AJ Styles was nominated for the bout at Noah's Destination. He said, the next wrestler Japanese fans can dream of being apart from WWE is AJ after Shinsuke Nakamura. AJ Styles has an aura around him in Japan. This goes back to his days working in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he took over leadership of the Bullet Club after Finn Balor departed for WWE. So AJ Styles just has a bit of an established relationship in Japan. Fans want to see him. We may have an update on CM Punk's return. On June 17th, Wrestler Votes reported that CM Punk's official return date was set for the end of July as of last week's June 10th edition of Monday Night Raw. The report reads, as of last week's Raw roster sheet, CM Punk's official return date was set for the end of July. I'm told he likely won't be cleared for action by Money in the Bank on July 6th, but he should be ready for SummerSlam on August 3rd. If he's ready for SummerSlam, that could be the date for the highly anticipated CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre match that has been building since Punk suffered his injury at the Royal Rumble in January. This WWE heir has reached out to AEW. At one time thought to be the heir to the WWE empire, Shane McMahon has reportedly reached out to the other side. Speaking on the Grilling JR podcast, Conrad Thompson revealed that Shane McMahon in AEW is not as far-fetched as originally believed. Revealing that he received a text from a friend, Thompson said, there was a friend of ours. He went out of his way to text me. Hey, that's not as crazy as you think. I know for sure that Shane McMahon has reached out to wrestlers on the AEW roster to at least hypothetically discuss the idea. McMahon last appeared on WWE programming at WrestleMania 39, where he got injured in a match against The Miz. What do you think about Shane McMahon in AEW?
Mind blown. That would be intriguing. That would be special. That would draw something if you did it right. But here's the thing. He's got to manage somebody. He's got to be an on-screen character. He cannot be the evil authority. He's got to be like the Bobby Heenan, like intriguing, somebody that's a hype man, somebody that's awesome. So he's got to be in the company. Dude, I would love that. I think that would be great. That could be some very intriguing shit where it's not story time with Shane McMahon, but he just drops nuggets on his dad little by little, or drop nuggets on the old company. Or just drop nuggets on his sister, like just turn heel and talk about his sister, like talk about his brother-in-law, in a way that's unique, that's intriguing. Like, hey, that guy has no ideas. That guy is just a guy that tapped it for opportunity. You can have so much fun with it, but he's got to be intriguing. And here's the thing, okay? If he goes in there and his first thing that he does is wrestle, then it's fucked. I mean, that's not what he needs to be doing. I don't want to see Shane jumping off cages. I don't want to see Shane in the death matches. I don't want to see that. Jumpsuit, hype man for somebody that needs it, and you keep it rolling. Keep it moving, man. And you know what? I'll be honest. Why not just mix it? Hype man for MJF. Boom. The Elite. You take it to the next level. He's the hype man. He rolls out there with MJF as, hey, we're the best thing going, and don't mess with us. And he's just the advocate, the representative. He's the better, refined version of Paul Heyman for MJF. And you just print money, and he holds the belts. And then if you want to start collecting belts, MJF, and then the guy that holds it is Shane McMahon. Now you have yourself something that's intriguing and interesting.
That would be interesting. It would be interesting to see. I don't necessarily know if MJF needs a mouthpiece, but that could be interesting. Them two playing off of each other would be absolutely incredible. I don't know if this ends up picking up any traction. I don't know where this ends up going. I did read a report. I want to just kind of put this out there a little bit. I did read a report, and I kind of squirreled it away. And I've been not actively looking, I guess passively looking for confirmation of this. But it was a report that kind of explained what went wrong with Shane McMahon in WWE. And again, I haven't really been able to double verify this, so I've not really brought it up. But you talk about him coming on and basically dropping little nuggets on Vince. It sounds like they had a bit of a strained relationship because Shane was very much against a lot of the stuff, a lot of the womanizing, and a lot of the tactics Vince had with other women, and what it did to his mom, and how he felt like his mom was thoroughly disrespected, and it kind of drove a bit of a wedge between the two of them, and he never really wanted to be his father or be like his father, but what he wanted was that validation from his father, which is why he went and bought some company in China, why he's done some of the stuff that he's done. And so I feel like with everything that's gone on with Vince McMahon, I could see what you're saying working in AEW. I could see him leaning into a character like that, where he just kind of drops little truth bombs and just kind of works through some of this live on air. And I think it could be really, really interesting. But again, I don't know if it happens. It sounds like there's interest, and it sounds like that interest may be only one way. So we'll just kind of monitor it and see what happens. But that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed the passion and the enjoyment that we shared this week. All that stuff that happened this week with Paul Heyman, with Joe Hendry, with Seth Rollins returning, with Drew McIntyre carrying out CM Punk over his shoulders through the crowd, with the reunited Bloodline 2.0, with Jacob Fatu, with the Wyatt 6 debuting. That's just a lot. And then you had to stare down with the tease of Ospreay MJF. It was beautiful. Great week of wrestling. We broke it all down here this week, and it was just a great episode. This one is gonna be bottled up for many, many years. Make sure you like and subscribe anywhere you listen to your favorite broadcast. Just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. I can't wait to fire it up as we preview a couple pay-per-views that are coming up at the end of June. Thanks, everybody. I can't wait to record next week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.